Everyone, welcome back to another video. I'm excited to create today's content because it's all about my studio space, and I've been feeling really jazzed making jewelry again and repeat patterns. Everything you saw me talk about in last month's video, I've been diving deep and getting creative. So I thought I'd take you along a little behind the scenes, making some jewelry, doing some drawing, getting content up on the website, creating a blog post, all the things that encompass running a small business as an artist, as a creative. By now, the collection for the Celestial Jungle release will be live. If you're curious, you can go have a look. It's been fun. I've been really enjoying it. And so, without further ado, I'm gonna rewind us back in time to before all of the Celestial Jungle jewelry was ready to roll. I wanna give a big shout out to Quartet for sponsoring today's video, but more on that a bit later. My little creative corner. It's right here at the window, and it's so nice to have a window to look out of whenever I'm doing crafty things. Although I will say in the afternoon the sun comes right through this window and is like really intense, since I have to draw the curtain and be prepared to sweat. That's okay. I kind of share this desk with Babes. I do my best to keep it clean after each work session, so that if he wants to come and stand here or sit, he can work and there's still like a space for him. We live in a small place, not as small as the Red Pepper, but you know, we're making do. And my little jewelry setup here is definitely like a work in progress. I could use like more storage or shelving or some kind of like drawer or cupboard situation. But you know, one thing at a time. So today I'm going to do a little bit of work on these earrings that I've been working on that are a leaf kind of design. When I sit down to create, it's not just about the final piece, it's about the process. It's about finding stillness and about grounding myself in the present moment. Art has become my therapy, a way to connect with something deeper, to step into a flow state where time disappears and I'm completely immersed in the act of creating. Lately, I've been studying art therapy, and one of the most powerful things that I've learned is the importance of the flow state. That feeling when you lose yourself in creativity and everything else fades away. It's like a moving meditation. Your mind quiets and your body finds a rhythm. You're no longer worrying about the past or the future, you're just here. Art, whether it's painting, digital design, or crafting jewelry, is a way for me to process emotions that I can't put into words. It's a release, a safe space to express joy, sadness, frustration, curiosity, whatever I'm feeling really. And that's what flow does for me. It helps me to tap into my subconscious mind, release tension, and find balance. It reminds me that I'm allowed to create without judgment, and that it's okay to make mistakes. That it's not about perfection, but about the experience of creating itself. So I'm always looking to expand my knowledge in all my creative, artistic hobbies and skill set. And I think it's really important to always learn new techniques from other creative, artist, professional people. And so this is where Quartet comes in as today's sponsor. Quartet is your online resource for all things creative. They really focus in on the experience of creating your own craft with your hands and being like a DIY maker. There's over 2,000 classes in a ton of different topics, from painting, illustration, photography, crochet, knitting, jewelry making, woodworking, cake decorating, the list goes on. Lately, I've been diving into a lot of jewelry making, which you will see much more of in this video. And I've been really wanting to expand my knowledge and deepen my practice with metalsmithing. So I've been taking a couple of classes, one of which is Setting for Every Shape by Robert Dankik. Honestly, I really dig his vibe. He's a nice older gentleman and he's been doing jewelry making for many, many years. And I love that he takes a moment to play a singing bowl before diving into his creative practice to just call in more of those creative energies. So I really appreciate that new added element to my craft making. On top of that, he's got some really great techniques that I haven't really ever explored in my jewelry making, like riveting and box setting, so I'm excited to incorporate more of that into my work. There are so many different classes for you to dive into, whether you're looking to just expand your knowledge in a specific creative field, or whether you're wanting to be a little bit more hands-on, save some money and make gifts for people this holiday season. Craftsy is a really great place for you to start and learn about all kinds of things that you could gift to others. Craftsy constantly has new classes popping up all the time. Their instructional videos are really easy to follow with super clear step-by-step directions on how to create the project. All the teachers have a different vibe, so you can find one that really fits your flow and someone that you really enjoy learning from. So for the first 1,000 of you who would love to jump on board, you can either scan the QR code or click the link in the description and you will get your first year as a new member for $1.49. If that isn't a deal, then I have no idea what is. So be ready to get crafty and enjoy learning some new techniques for this year to empower you to be creative and working with your hands, making things that you yourself made, and yeah, learn something new. So big thank you to Craftsy. I've been really appreciating just expanding my knowledge this year. So without further ado, let's dive into some more crafty things, making jewelry, and yeah. Sometimes before I get creative, I like to write. Get thoughts out, goals, dreams, aspirations. There's something about journaling without judgment that feels like a reset for the mind, a release of holding onto a burden or a weight. Sometimes I don't always have words to explain how I feel, but grabbing a pen and paper and any fragments from my mind is a soothing way to just let go. Even using coloring pencils or coloring and doodling, filling in a page with random shapes and shades, it's really just a nostalgic feeling of my childhood to quiet the overthinking that comes with adulting and just exist in the rhythm of creativity. We've had some really cold, snowy winter days here in North Carolina, and some days the cold feels like a challenge, a weight, and the kind of day that makes you just want to stay inside, curled up, and wait for the warmth to return. But when there's snow that sticks, it's such a great reminder for me that winter isn't just about stillness, it's about resetting. The cold really forces you to slow down and be present, to feel everything more deeply. I love taking walks outside to clear my mind and let my thoughts breathe. There's just something so fresh and crisp about the air, the way the world feels quieter in the winter, and it just gives me space for more creativity. It's in these beautiful moments, all bundled up walking Odin, that I find inspiration. And that's when I know that it's really time to get creative. So when the world feels frozen and my thoughts feel stuck, I remind myself to keep moving, to step outside, to let the cold wake me up. And then when I get back home, I get creative. Because art, like winter, teaches us patience. Patience in layers, patience in creativity, patience in the process. And with patience, we find growth. So I realize I haven't shared much about how I came to be a jeweler and my journey to get here. I really fell in love with jewelry making back in the red pepper days when I was actually pregnant with Azalea. I took a class and immediately was in love. It was a 2-day weekend of immersive learning and I made my first ring. I generally become incredibly obsessed with a craft and dig deep until I figure out how to make the things that I see possible to create. When it comes to style of jewelry making, I love the rustic, natural look. Botanical elements from nature always inspire me. I was first a little bit apprehensive about the firing of a piece and soldering metal together. But once you have an understanding of how it works and what you need to do, it's actually incredibly satisfying. Here's the process of what it takes to create some of the jewels on my website. After hours of sewing, which you saw earlier in the video, next comes filing, sanding, and the first phase of smoothing out the edges. Then comes firing. In a nutshell, there's a paste called flux that helps the silver solder to melt and run that I paint on before setting up my piece to fire. The solder is essentially the glue where you have to heat the entire piece of metal to help distribute the heat to a temperature that allows the solder to melt. And all metals have a different melting point. You can tell the solder is there when it gets to be this beautiful, iridescent, shiny color when it begins to flow. Think liquid mercury. There's different kinds of solder that melts at different temperatures, and I keep little jars of them pre-cut into tiny pieces so that they are ready to go when I am in the bulk fire phase of creating. I always try to fire in one big batch so that my production line is as efficient as possible. And just like that, your piece is now unified as one piece of metal and can be hammered, shaped, and formed into whatever jewelry you're making. First comes a quick quench in the water to cool the metal down and a drop into the pickle pot, which has a mix of ingredients to help remove the oxidization and any black coloring on the piece. I get to use a tripod mostly when I'm working on creating bezels because you want to be heating larger surface areas to avoid any unintentional melting, which has happened before. So every time you hit metal with a hammer and work it with a file, it becomes what is called work hardened, meaning it gets harder to work with and would need to be annealed to shape further if needed. Annealing is basically setting it under a flame to heat the metal and distribute all the atoms and particles of the metal. So once I have my shape and textures and filed finish, I start putting the pieces together, which is when it starts to get really satisfying to see the piece getting closer to the finish line. This part can get a little bit fidgety, and to be honest, while it's one of my favorite steps, it's also one of the most frustrating parts. Another touch up on filing and sanding where needed. If you can see where the solder is kind of bulging or overlapping, now is the time to file things down to make it flat and seem as though it was never two pieces. So once the pieces are put together, it's time to throw them into the tumbler, which I am so grateful to have finally. It saves so much time when it comes to buffing, polishing, and adding that finishing shine. Pieces live in there for about an hour, and that's when I get to work on other projects because I'm multitasking, baby. Drilling holes, filing, and prepping for little fringe tags to be attached to a pair of earrings, along with many other different design details that are added to other pieces that I'm still working on. Then comes more polishing with compounds that help smooth out the metal edges and give it a nice smooth finish and shine in many cases, which is why my fingers are all black. That's a sign of a very productive day. This little Dremel tool is a lifesaver for this process. You can get massive ones installed onto a bench, but for the most part, this one has been a great portable mini jewelry studio tool to hold on to. So then comes washing off any extra compounds with soapy water and of course a massive cleanup. Bezels, bezels, bezels. I drop in a little E6000 for some extra security, which is the most intense super glue you could ever come across. That way I can know for sure that the stones will stay intact. I'll fold the metal around the stone, which helps to hold them in place. Then comes measuring and listing all the jewelry pieces online with my super satisfying keyboard. If you are a tactile sound person and love the sound of mechanical keyboards from back in the day, then this is your moment. And for those who order, jewelry pieces are packed up with love and sent out. Phew, that was a lot of work, so let's get out for a little bit of an adventure. I have been going every month to this Raleigh women in marketing group, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm headed there tonight. It's a Galentine's situation. I'm wearing my new earrings. I've been really loving these earrings lately. I brought some other jewelry pieces to see if I could put on a couple of the girls. Often I come to downtown Raleigh, but here I am. And I'm going to a place I've never been to called Killjoy, so we'll have to get a scope of what it's like. But welcome to the grit of downtown Raleigh. It's actually a super beautiful evening. In a world that feels loud and overwhelming, finding this flow state has been a way for me to ground myself and reconnect with what matters. It's taught me that creativity is a form of self-care, a way to take time for myself, to heal and to grow. Whether I'm working on a digital painting, making jewelry by hand, or simply sketching out ideas, these moments remind me to slow down, to breathe, to trust that the creative process will take me exactly where I need to go. I think we all need moments like this, moments where we can release control, embrace our creativity, and just flow. You don't need to be a professional artist to feel this. It's not about the skill, it's about permission. Giving yourself permission to create without expectations. Because when you do, you'll find something beautiful, not just in the art that you make, but in yourself. You'll find calm, you'll find clarity, and most of all, you'll find freedom. So this is my reminder to you. Create something today. Let yourself get lost in the process. Allow yourself to enter that flow state. Because in those moments, we're not just making art. We're making space to breathe, to release, and to reconnect with who we are. And that's the kind of power that we all need a little more of in our lives.